computer. Chris, welcome to the Dr. Tom Show. I'm so excited to have you on today. I've been following you for quite a few years now. You probably don't know that, but I have been, because you've been putting out some excellent content. And today it's a brilliant subject, not just, it is relevant now in terms of coming out of sort of coronavirus and people having the opportunity to change their lives, but also at any point in somebody's life, it's a brilliant thing to do. And we want to talk about detox today. So Chris, first and foremost, thank you very much for joining us on the show. We really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for inviting me. I've been impressed with everything that you put out as well. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, we're both in mutual agreement. So let's see if we can agree on something more. Detox is a huge subject, I know. But I'm just going to open a massive question up to you. I'm just going to say, why should people even think about starting a detox?
Okay, so with detox, first of all, there's there's lots of different ideas, misconceptions, controversy about the whole thing, because our body, our liver, in fact, it's not just our liver. Lots of people, when they think of detox, if they think of detox at all, they think of the liver as the main organ of detoxification, which, it is, but also the kidneys play a big part. So do your lungs, your bowels, but every single cell in your body, whether it's a cell in your brain, whether it's a cell in your nervous system, a cell in the bones of your spine, has to be able to get rid of its exhaust fumes and waste. Everything. So it's important for every single cell in your body to get rid of it. And if waste builds up, it's like having, if the bin men went on strike and you just have piles of rubbish and rotting food and everything just piling up outside your house. You could just get as much antibacterial wipes as you wanted. You could get as many deodorants as possible, but the problem's going to be there. It's going to build up and it's going to cause problems.
That's really true. And I'm glad you said that, because that's actually happening out here. The council haven't pulled their finger out. But it's true. And that, I like to think when I talk to people about detox, if you haven't been to the loo for a couple of days, you start to feel a bit grumpy, don't you? A bit gripey. It doesn't just affect your tummy. So what, if we're becoming toxic, how would we even know that we're becoming toxic?
Well, the simple answer to that is we just all are, okay? And that's a very glib answer, I know, but the very process of breaking down food, even just normal natural food, the reason we have detoxification processes in our body is because toxicity is happening to us all the time. It's just a natural process of just when you take food or any substances and break it down, there's always going to be something toxic in there. Or your body, in order to recycle something, has to recycle it through a series of chemicals, and some of those chemicals are going to be toxic. Like to our body. One of those, for instance, something called homocysteine. And homocysteine is something we all make, but we all have to either get rid of it or recycle it. And if it's not recycled properly, it can turn into sulfuric acid and it can cause a lot of arthritis, or it can cause a lot of heart disease and heart problems. But it's something we've always made and we've always had to deal with. But the problem now is kind of twofold with toxicity. The first is the fact that there are now more toxins in our environment than at any other point in history. But even if we go back, I can't remember who said it now. I can't remember whether it was Plato or Aristotle or Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, but even they were talking about how toxic the pollution was back then in ancient Greece. And now we have at least 80 to 100,000 man-made chemicals in our environment. Just about every single toilet in the country, I'm not talking about toilet, I'm talking about bathrooms. Clean bathrooms at home has at least 700 hormone-disrupting chemicals that we're absorbing through our skin, our eyes, we're inhaling stuff. It's not just the pollution that we find in London or in the big cities, it's everywhere. It's chemicals we're touching. If you handle a receipt from a till, that's actually got hormone disruptors on it. And we know that women who are handling till receipts all day long actually have more of these chemicals inside their body disrupting their hormones.
Wow. It's to the point, like you're just saying there, it's to the point where the stuff that we're using to clean things is toxic to us. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, a lot of the disinfectants, for instance, getting to COVID, a lot of the disinfectants used in hospitals and now in our clinics that we're using to actually clean everything to kill the bacteria, we know that those disinfectants in hospitals actually cause increased respiratory problems because it's toxic to the lungs and the lung lining.
Wow. So, I mean, that just, I don't even, I want to dive into a soil bath or something just to try and get away from the cleanliness. So with that, I mean, some of us would just go, well, that's just the way the world is going and we just got to deal with it. I suppose to some extent we have to deal with it. And like, it's a whole other subject to say, well, how long can the planet sustain that? I don't know. But what can we do now to just try and, well, first of all, what should we reduce? What should we try and eliminate from this stuff? And then what should we try and do to help with the detox? So what should we try and eliminate?
Okay, so well, just before we do that, there's the other point I want to say. The two reasons we need to really think about detox is, one is because there are so many more pollutants.
Yeah.
Also, the nutrients that we actually need to detoxify our body, all the right proteins, B vitamins, lots of other things, well, phytochemicals that we find from plants. The way that food is grown and processed and then cooked and prepared means that the food we're getting today contains, in some cases, 1/10 or even less, maybe even 1/20th of the nutrients that were in the food 50, 60, 70 years ago. And many people aren't just, and all the recommended daily allowances that you see, those are the amounts of vitamins and things we need to not get a deficiency disease related to that specific vitamin. That's not even what the optimal levels are to basically perform optimally as a human, let alone get rid of all the extra crud that's in our body.
I've always thought they were quite low. So that's what they set, is it? They set it minimum for deficiency, not for health.
Yeah. So basically, the RDA of vitamin D is basically enough so that you don't get rickets, but it's not enough for your immune system to work optimally. It's not enough for your anti-inflammatory system to work optimally.
Wow.
And the RDA of vitamin D is like, basically, if you go out, the RDA, I can never remember whether it's 400 or 800 international units, but if you go outside into the sun, you have a nice day outside, which is what would happen every day in the wild, we would make between 20 and 30,000 international units.
Wow. See, I was led to believe it's about 1,000 IUs per 10 kilograms of body weight, but you're saying it potentially is more than that we would need.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what we make when we're out in the sun. And if we are out in the sun every day, we'd be making 20, 30,000 every single day.
Wow. And you're absolutely right in terms of what we're getting now isn't what we should be getting from what the planet is made. I've got a book at home from 1880 written on nutrition. There's no reference to organic or anything like that. And even now the organics aren't really what they were. So we've got pollutions, but we've also got deficiencies. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, and that's what's leading to a lot of toxic buildup in the system.
Okay, so if we went for pollutants first, let's talk about some common pollutants that people might not realize they've got or use that they could simply exchange or stop.
Yeah, well, probably one of the worst. It's difficult to stop it completely, but it is easy to decrease its effects. And that is one of the big ones that so many healthcare practitioners and nutritionists have talked about for so many years. And it's to do with wheat, basically. Pretty much all food these days is covered with a herbicide called glyphosate.
Yes.
And there have been massive legal battles just recently won against Monsanto about how much of a world problem glyphosate is. But the problem with glyphosate is on everything. Even organic food has been found to have glyphosate on it because it's grown next to an inorganic field. But the problem with glyphosate is, well, one of the big problems with glyphosate is it makes an enzyme in wheat called zonulin. You don't have to remember this. It's not gluten, it's zonulin. Okay, it makes an enzyme called zonulin basically zonulin already, it rips your intestinal cells apart. Your intestinal cells are meant to be stuck together, and so your cells do all the absorbing of the food. But if the gut lining comes apart, it allows food in to the body, or pollutants or other stuff. And zonulin just rips this apart. But glyphosate makes zonulin about 100 times worse.
Wow.
And so every time you eat wheat, okay, it doesn't have, it's even gluten-free, you know, stuff. If it contains wheat in any form, it's going to have zonulin, and it's going to rip the gut lining apart, and it's going to mean that whatever you then eat is going to increase the chances of it doing you some kind of harm.
Is that what people call leaky gut?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There is actually a reason for leaky gut, and I could go into that as well, but that's IBS.
Yes.
There are reasons why leaky guts happen, and there's also reasons why they should happen as well.
Yeah.
But basically, zonulin just makes it all a lot worse. So one of the best ways to decrease the amount of exposure to all the chemicals and foods that you're going to be eating is basically stop eating wheat so often, basically.
So essentially that would build up because a lot of these toxins are unavoidable, that would build up your body's resistance.
Yeah, it's going to build up the gut lining's resistance to them.
We therefore need to take something, because I assume that gut is therefore going to be one of the first. Are you still there?
You're frozen.
I'm back. Can you hear me? I'm good. Just going to wait to reconnect and then hopefully you're back. Are you back?
Yeah, I can hear now.
Perfect. Good. Not a problem. So that is going to help our body be more resistant to the pollutions that come in. Yeah. But I assume that gut lining, therefore, is the first line of defense against a lot of pollution. So do we need to do something to improve that, or is that not quite right?
Yeah. I mean, there are nutrients, there are foods, there are things you can do to help keep that lining together. A simple thing is apple cider vinegar. Mm-hmm. For those that don't have gastroesophageal reflux disease or heartburn, basically having a tablespoon or two of apple cider vinegar in a bit of water about 5 minutes before you eat actually helps tighten some of the tight junctions.
I'm glad you said that, because my wife won't go near me once I've had apple cider vinegar. She says I stink. I have it every day. I think it's brilliant.
Right. Now, there is a supplement called Restore that does it hundreds of times better and doesn't stink.
Oh, really?
It's like, as opposed to apple cider vinegar like 2-3 quid a bottle. Restore for a number of months worth, about 80 quid a bottle.
Yeah.
So I recommend it for people with severe gut problems. Actually, and not even everyone with severe gut problems needs it, but it can be useful.
So apart from wheat, is there any other things that we can be avoiding, like pollutants that we know?
So we've got wheat is like one of the number one stuff for the gut. But then we've got our skin and all the pollution on the outside of the world as well. And apart from just moving to maybe Canada and living in the middle of nowhere, one of the best things that you can do is actually get some kind of air purifier for where you are the most. So the first place to put an air purifier is your bedroom.
Yep.
Because you're going to spend hopefully 8 hours at least in that single room. So you can get air purifiers that actually suck in and clean the air, and they've got HEPA filters in, or you can get an ionizer as well, which works in a different way. Ionizers help latch onto particles and make them heavier and bring them out of the air so they settle on the ground. You can get ionizer purifiers combined as well. So there's a number of devices you can use, and also my office as well is the other place.
So we have and we were bought it by someone else, a salt lamp with the impression it clears the air. Is that right or not?
I know that salt lamps will have some kind of an effect, but I don't know how much.
Yeah.
I've not actually studied the effects of salt lamps. My bet is that it wouldn't be anywhere near as good as an ionizer or an air purifier.
I can imagine. Well, something definitely we should be looking at. And I'm looking behind you, and for people who aren't watching on YouTube, there's plants, and we have plants all around our house and the practice, not in the view that you've got here with these grey walls. But do they add some benefit to us as well? Are they worth having in the house?
Oh yeah, plants. I mean, plants are not only good to eat, they're good to have around us because they suck in pollution and they spit out oxygen, basically.
Perfect.
and carbon dioxide, but that's another matter. But yeah, plants, lots of different plants. And I think of the plants that I think because NASA have done a lot of testing on plants on air because they want to go and explore space. So they want to know what the most efficient plants are to take with them. And I think they found spider plants
Really?
are about the best for general air cleaning. And they're very easy to look after as well. Not spider plants. Sorry, no, not spider plants. Snake plants. Snake plants. So basically, spider plants that hang down. Snake plants basically are like, they look like swords sticking up out of the ground, but they're green leaves, basically. Snake
Brilliant.
plants.
Well, we're going to get some of those.
Yeah, snake plants.
So, I mean, that's really helpful. And the wheat's a really interesting one in terms of preventing those pollutants from getting in. And obviously, the two I wouldn't have necessarily thought about. But then where do we look in terms of our deficiency? So, speak to someone who is having a poor diet and how they can maybe start, and then speak to someone who thinks they've got a good diet and maybe there's some improvements that they could make. But obviously a lot of people who listen to this show aren't super healthy or haven't got there yet. Where can people just start?
Okay, well, money-wise, okay, if you just switch to organic, you're going to be doing yourself a favor. Switch to organic. Now, there are some fruits and vegetables that are worse than others. So usually things like bananas, potatoes, apples, grapes, strawberries, or basically most of the berries, basically. Most of those things, it's better to have them organic because, one, you're going to have less pesticides and herbicides and other crud on them, but also when something is grown organically, because it actually has to create its own defense mechanisms, it's stronger. So it will have more nutrients in it. And the defense mechanisms, basically the poisons and the toxins and the things that plants produce to actually help kill the things that are trying to kill it, actually then have beneficial effects on us. And
That's fascinating.
There's a process called, if you want to look it up, it's a process called xenohormesis. Hormesis is basically the science of whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes.
And xenohormesis, X-E-N-O, as xeno as in foreign, or alien rather. Xeno is alien hormesis. It's basically the things that plants say. So one of the reasons why something like turmeric has got so many health benefits is because all those compounds are literally xenohormetic compounds that if we took them in large enough doses would probably kill us. But in the right amounts, they just cause a tiny little stress and they signal to our body to get stronger and to upgrade this defense or that defense.
That's really interesting. I was listening to someone talk about longevity and improving longevity, and it's all about creating stress in the body to make us stronger long term.
Yeah.
So are you saying that the defenses that the plants have to make for themselves causes stress within us to make us stronger, or are beneficial to us?
They are beneficial to us because it's basically all the signaling that we get from a more varied plant diet. All these tiny little signals, tiny little stress signals, but they're stress signals in the same way that you exercise.
Yes.
It's like the only way you're going to build a muscle is if you put some stress through it. Yeah. So when we're talking about stresses, we're talking about good stress.
And I think that's a brilliant one to be thinking about in terms of we are moving to a world that tries to make us more comfortable, that tries to make life easier. And like we're seeing with the COVID thing at the moment, people are isolating. What's going to happen when they all come out of isolation?
They're going to be just as weak, or if not weaker.
So, so where can people? Obviously, switching to organic is a great thing. What should people really be trying to have in their diet that's going to improve their body's defenses against pollutants?
Okay. Well, the places that have the most, or the nutrients that have the most of these compounds that are going to help you in various ways are things like herbs and spices. So flavor, basically. So turmeric, ginger. Ginger has been shown to detoxify, I think it's lead, pretty much as well as some of the chelating chemical agents that are available out there.
Wow.
So ginger, so you've got your turmeric, ginger, garlic, but then you have spices like rosemary, thyme, sage, oregano. All of these compounds have different anti-inflammatory compounds, antiviral compounds, but they also just help the body clean itself. So,
And what sort of quantities are we talking? Like, are we talking just a little bit of sprinkle every day, or are we talking like a chunk of ginger in the morning? Like, what are we talking?
well, pretty much the more the better. So the more flavor you can add to your food, the better it is,
Yep.
to certain extents. Or you can make, you can make up shots or drinks. You can buy pill forms of all these as well, because because just a little bit is going to be okay. It's going to flavor the food, but if you want to have medicinal effects, you've got to have lots.
Okay, so they sort of compress it and
Yeah, so pill forms and things like that can really help. So herbs and spices, and then fruits, berries, lots of green leafy stuff. Rocket, kale, all these kinds of things, and even better if you can grow your own.
Yes.
Grow your own. And one of my favourites, because it's easy to grow, is Swiss chard.
Yes, I got a patient who brings me
Loads
tons
of
of
it.
that. It's amazing.
And you can eat the whole thing. You eat the stem, it's like celery. You eat the green leafy stuff, it's just full of good stuff, and it will be organic if you grow it yourself, and you'll get loads of it very easily.
Perfect. So people can just start by getting some spice into their diet, some color, some green, that kind of thing can really, really help. Yes. What should people be? You said to avoid wheat. Is there any other things that we should be avoiding in our diet as a rule of thumb?
Well, all the processed stuff.
Yep.
It's the things that people know they should be doing, but they don't realize quite how bad all the processed stuff is. All the chemicals, artificial flavorings, artificial sugars, all these things are just horrendous. Too many carbonated drinks.
So how dangerous are they? What's it going to do to us? Like if I was to say I'm only having one can of pop a week, or a fizzy drink to people who are not from the north of England, how bad's that?
Well, at one a week, I'm not sure if I've read any studies looking at exact amounts, but certainly if you're drinking one a day, that's not going to be good, because the carbonation process itself, artificially carbonated drinks, basically just the thing that makes them fizzy is going to actually leach minerals from the food you're eating and from your body.
Does this count for fizzy water as well? Because I see a lot of trend for people drinking fizzy water these days.
Yeah, if it's artificially carbonated, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The naturally carbonated stuff, which is hardly fizzy at all, because it's the actual fizzing, it's the carbonation that basically leaches the minerals out of the rocks as they're coming up.
Yep.
And makes those mineral waters much higher in minerals, because the carbonation or the chemicals have leached the minerals and put them in the drink already.
Wow.
Whereas just ordinary water hasn't got very many minerals in it, and you carbonate it, and you basically have water that's fizzy that's going to leach minerals from your body.
So before we think about maybe a little detox protocol for someone, if someone were to start, I just want you to touch on meat, if you will.
Meat?
Yeah, like where do you stand in terms of meat?
That's good, because that brings to one of the major things that we need in order for our body to detoxify is protein. And most people are not eating enough protein, whether they're a meat eater or not. And in order to sustain your muscle mass, okay, and basically as you age, you lose muscle mass unless you're actually working at it.
We're not talking about bodybuilders here, are we? We're talking about
we're just talking about sustaining. We're just talking about the average person who's not exercising very much. Is just going to it. In order to sustain that muscle mass to the best of their ability, you need to have at least 1 gram of protein for every pound you weigh. So basically, I'm 140 pounds. I need to eat 140 grams. Sorry, no, that's not right. Sorry. You need 1 gram for every kilogram. That's right. 1 gram for every kilogram to sustain. Sorry. In order to build muscle, you need 2 grams per kilogram. So I'm 60 kilograms. So I need at least 60 grams of protein a day to sustain my muscle mass.
What does that equate to? What's that?
60 grams. So basically, so you're talking about, so I think if you've got like 60 grams of fish, I think that might contain 20 grams of protein.
Yeah.
It's going to be higher percentage in beef, but basically most people may eat just a lump of meat or a bit of fish at dinner.
Yeah.
And that's it for their protein intake, and it's nowhere near enough. And so if they're not making enough protein, if they're not getting enough protein just to sustain the muscle mass, they're also not going to have enough protein for their liver to create lots of chemicals or their cells to detoxify.
Wow.
Because you need protein to detoxify. So one of the things I'm telling most people to do is up your protein intake in as clean a way as possible, which brings us back to meat. The majority of meat these days, whether you're talking about red meat, chicken, or even fish as well, actually, most of the farm stuff, there's got all kinds of chemicals and horrors in it. Farmed fish doesn't contain omega-3 fats. So if you're eating farmed fish and you're thinking it's actually healthy for you, it's also got runoff and chemicals in it and all kinds of weird stuff. So fish, farmed chicken, farmed meat, probably not too good. But I don't tend to concentrate on telling people to stop eating those. I tend to try and concentrate getting people eating more plants.
Yes.
And then when they choose meat or fish or chicken, try and get organic, try and get it, or if it's meat, try and get it grass-fed. And I go for grass-fed over organic.
Yep.
Because grass-fed beef's going to have actually some omega-3 fats in it, for instance. If you know a local farmer and you know how they've raised their meat, that's the best place to get it. Get it locally, because again, if you're getting stuff locally, you're going to decrease the amount of pollution that was required to get the meat to you. And it's the same with plants. It's like, in order to transplant, like people go, you've got meat is causing all this pollution, but how about bringing rice from China?
Yes.
There's still pollution involved somewhere. So eating local is basically, I think, more important than even worrying about whether things are organic or not.
Well, it's going to help you with both the pollutions and the deficiencies, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And we certainly get ours. We got a local farm we know very well, and it's the difference in the quality is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So if people are listening to this, and you start off by the front of the show saying that just assume you're toxic, like everybody, just assume you're toxic. So if someone's like, you know what, actually, I need to do something about this, would you put someone on a detox protocol, or would you just tell them, start eating well?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have a number of different videos and things online that talk about some general stuff. And you can start getting people eating healthily. But then I do have detox protocols as well. Everything from really simple stuff. I'll tell you something simple in a moment that everyone can start doing, and you have to go and buy 2 things, to really intense ones. So the first detox that I really learned was from a guy called Dr. Bob Rakowski in Houston, Texas. Runs the Natural Medicine Center. But if you look at Bob Rakowski or the Dr. Bob, because someone, she's now a friend of mine. I didn't know her at the time, but basically she was given 18 months to live with a terminal brain cancer. And her partner, who is a friend of mine, Pete Cohen, was advised to, well, what you need to do is you need to try and find, because there's nothing the NHS can really do for her apart from give her the chemo and whatever and see what happens, but she's going to die. And you want to find people who have survived this cancer and find out what they did. And this led them to America, and they had some experimental stem cell stuff, which killed the cancer. But then it came back. So they had the experimental stuff, got rid of it, came back. And I think they went for the 3rd round. And while they were in the waiting room with this person, they said, well, the thing is, this guy can get rid of the cancer, but your body is breeding the cancer. You need to go and see this guy here, Dr. Bob Rakowski, who's going to clean up your body so it stops becoming a breeding ground for cancer, so that when you kill the cancer this time, it's not going to come back. And what he did is he put Hannah on a 7-day intense protocol. And this is something that I recommend everybody does twice a year. ideally. And it's incredibly intense. Basically, it's very restrictive diet. Eat nothing but vegetables for 7 days. And you can't have potatoes. Try and stay low on root veggies. But then you have to take about 200 pounds worth of nutrients, including low allergy proteins as well. And so it literally just forces lots of goodness into your body and forces lots of goodness out, basically. Lots of badness out.
Yeah.
And Hannah was on this detox like week after week. Literally, she was crying black. I mean, there was just so much stuff oozing. It was just incredible.
Wow.
Incredible. But that was now 6 years ago.
Wow.
So the terminal brain cancer never came back. She's completely clear, healthiest she's ever been. And I see this with so many of my patients. Even just doing it once can cause a transformation, whether it's in their sports performance. So lots of recurrent injuries never going away. Seeing a chiropractor a lot, seeing a physiotherapist, eating healthily, but you're still not getting better, try Detox. But that's the intense one. And then I have a 90-day program, which is much more in depth, which is about creating a more sustainable diet and nutrition, but it actually goes into detoxifying the brain.
Yep.
As well. That's a much more involved process in some ways, but it's a less strict diet.
Yep.
But for something that's going to be pretty much safe for everybody to do and fairly low cost is to buy 2 supplements. Okay, so first of all, try and eat organically and increase all your fruits and vegetables as much as possible and berries, and flavor in your food, all your spices and herbs. But go and buy something called glutathione.
Mm-hmm.
And glutathione is one of the most important chemicals in your body. It's known as the master antioxidant because it recycles things like vitamin A, C, and E. But it's also one of the major fuels for your immune system, and it's one of the major fuels for your liver and all of your cells to detoxify. And unless you're getting enough protein, you will not be making enough glutathione. Mm. And when the environment is putting loads of toxins into your body's going to be using up all of its glutathione. So one of the simplest and best things to do is to just improve glutathione in your body by taking it literally as a supplement. And you want to take, and there are a number of different supplements out there. There are pill forms. You can get it in spray liposomal forms. You'll see some stuff out there saying that it doesn't work, but blood tests show that it does work, even though theoretically it's actually broken down in the gut. Mm-hmm. It seems to, even if you do take it orally and it's not meant to work, it does work. Yep. So basically you take the glutathione, take it in the morning, and that starts sort of the process. And then at night time, take a simple binding agent, of which, again, when you come, there are some really good binders out there that are much more expensive. They've got a whole range of different things. Binding agents are things that literally latch onto certain toxins, like a carbon filter in a water filter. Mm-hmm. Okay, and there are lots of different compounds that will latch to different chemicals. So the simplest binder is just activated charcoal. Yes. Which you can pick up for like, £5-6 from a chemist. And so you take glutathione in the morning, and then last thing at night before you go to bed, you take 4 tablets of activated charcoal, or capsules, depending on what you've got. And that's going to help latch on to some of the crud and rubbish that you're getting rid of in your bowels. And do that for 90 days.
Wow. So it doesn't have to be that difficult.
No, if you spend 90 days trying to eat more vegetables and fruits and nuts and berries and seeds and natural whole foods, try and decrease the crud, increase the flavor in your food for 90 days, increase the spices, increase the herbs, and have some glutathione in the morning and activated charcoal at night for about 90 days.
Are you allowed to have a treat during the 90 days?
Yeah, I mean, with this, the idea is to try and create a sustainable lifestyle. And there are a number of different reasons for eating. 2 big ones. The big one is basically to give your body everything it needs, but we also eat for enjoyment as well.
Yeah.
We also eat for enjoyment.
And I think you really do see when you change your diet and you clean up your diet, that you get the flavors from other stuff that you just didn't know when you were having, for instance, a high sugar diet. Like you'll bite into a carrot and go, oh my God, the carrot is sweet.
Yes.
You know, and that just takes a bit of time to process through, doesn't it? But
yes, yeah. For the but I don't recommend anyone tries this without actually working with a therapist. But if you try fasting for more than 24 hours, and really don't try this without actually talking to an expert. But if you don't eat for 4 or 5 days, and then food is just like amazing. It just
wow.
tastes. There is so much more flavor. I did a fast a couple of years ago, and the first thing I ate was some steamed broccoli that just had a bit of pepper and a bit of garlic in it, and it was just what flavor. What flavor?
Oh.
And then I had a piece of beetroot, and the beetroot tasted like sugar. It was just.
But this is, food is exciting. I love cooking. I love working with different things, and food can be exciting and really, really good for us. There's been some amazing information you've sort of given us already in this show, and a lot of stuff that people can simply just take away and do, which is fantastic. So I really, really appreciate that. I just wanted to touch on the heart, because I know you're expanding your knowledge of that, and well, I say expanding superior knowledge that you have already anyway. And I thought we could just touch on the heart before we finish the show. And why the heart?
Well, probably the most pressing urgent reason, I mean, came from at the beginning of it's very topical actually, the coronavirus problem that we have. When for the first reports coming out of China were showing that people with high blood pressure seem to be more at risk than any other group of people. And so I was like, well, why high blood pressure? Why not diabetes? Yes, diabetics were. Why not atherosclerosis? Why not immune compromised? Why not cancer patients who've already got immune suppression? This is an upper respiratory tract thing. Why isn't it asthma? And so I was like, okay, well, why high blood pressure? What's the link with immune system and high blood pressure? And so I basically just Googled link between high blood pressure and the immune system, see what came up. And it seems that for a number of years, researchers have been suspecting there is a link between high blood pressure and the immune system. And some of them were thinking that it's to do with the fact that when you get stressed, it alters your sympathetics and your parasympathetics, it changes your immune system, your inflammatory response, it causes arterial inflammation, it can be linked to immune problem. Some are saying that basically as you get the blood pressure going up, it alters the brain, it causes immune problems in the brain, and then it starts causing immune problems. But then it turns out that last year in Edinburgh, now it's only been done on mice so far, they basically found out that when they fed mice a crap diet, okay, it decreased the ability of macrophages, which are an important part of the immune system, and the main fuel for macrophages is glutathione. Okay, it basically decreased the ability of macrophages to eat a chemical in your body called endothelin. And endothelin, okay, we need it, but basically if you have too much endothelin, it basically causes high blood pressure. And part of the job of our immune system is to help regulate the amount of endothelin in our body. So when you eat crap, basically your immune system, your body's ability to eat endothelin decreases. And when they switched the mice's diet, or the mouse diet, basically macrophages went up, endothelin went down, blood pressure went down.
Wow.
And so I thought, well, this is fascinating. But then as I did more research into coronavirus, it also turns out that pollution was a major problem. And the most polluted areas of the world, like northern Italy is the worst area for air pollution in the entire of Europe.
Really?
And that's where, worst area in the entire of Europe for certain types of air pollution. And all of our cities and towns and stuff. And there's a lot of research on the link between pollution and high blood pressure and heart disease. And the number one molecule that's involved in that is something called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is a wonderful chemical. It's a Nobel Prize for Medicine was won on its effects in our arteries. It basically helps dilate arteries. But also nitric oxide is also really important for regulating our inflammatory response, and it's also important for regulating our immune response as well. And basically, air pollution disables our ability to adequately control nitric oxide, because when nitric oxide goes out of control, it can actually lead to what's called a cytokine, an overinflamed cytokine system, which is basically what's killing loads of people with coronavirus, a cytokine storm. And this is when nitric oxide and other chemicals have gone out of control. So air pollution destroys nitric oxide, and it's been named as enzyme zero, or nitric oxide synthase, enzyme zero, link between air pollution and high blood pressure and heart disease.
Wow.
So we know that air pollution causes problems with nitric oxide, which increases heart disease, increases high blood pressure. We know that nitric oxide is entirely linked up with the inflammatory system. We know that it's linked up with our immune system. And we know that also nitric oxide, when it's dosed in the right ways, can actually help people with coronavirus. And nitric oxide, one of the things that helps regulate and control it is glutathione again. It all comes back to the same sort of things. And so I started thinking, okay, I'm going to start really tackling people with high blood pressure, really try and help people with high blood pressure, try and get them on a good diet. I've written loads about nitric oxide in the past, get everyone really making sure that that's all looked after. And then just no sooner had I done my first webinar on blood pressure and nitric oxide, then this guy called Dr. Jack Wilson said that he's going to start training people in his methods on heart disease. He's a cardiologist in the States, known as the paleocardiologist. And so basically, I think I'm the only person in England so far doing his course. And it's great. And I have to say, if there are any chiropractors watching or osteopaths, okay, this book, The Paleocardiologist, The Natural Way to Heart Health, is probably the best book on chiropractic I've ever read.
Because his wife is a chiropractor, isn't she?
Yeah.
That's how he got into it.
This book basically goes into, I mean, it's amazing. When I read the book, it was like, this is the book that I've been meaning to write for years. It talks about why we need to detoxify, why we need to do this, why we need to do that, heavy metals, all this bad, why you need to exercise. And then there's a brilliant chapter on chiropractic in here as well.
It's brilliant. We'll get there.
And so I think I'm telling all my patients to go out and buy this, because then they'll really understand chiropractic and the way I actually deal with health and well-being.
So it's really interesting, because everything you've just said on the heart there links completely with what we were just saying about deficiencies and pollution. And it is as simple as all of that. You know, you can, and what you've done brilliantly today is make a lot of this stuff, which has been ethereal to a lot of people, very, very, very simple. And there's some great stuff that they can take away. So I really appreciate you doing that for our audience, and thank you ever so much. It's going to create huge value for them, and I know that. If you could leave someone with just one tip or trick or something to go away with, what would it be?
Apart from eat more plants.
Yes.
Apart from eat more plants. I would say is focus on plants and foods that are going to improve nitric oxide, because they're not just going to do that, they're going to have lots of other effects in your body as well. So focus, so try beets, beet leaves, beetroot, pomegranate, arugula, rocket, as it's also known in the UK, arugula in the States. Green leafy stuff. Actually go and Google foods to improve nitric oxide, because when you do that, you're also going to start improving other things in your system as well. And the other thing is, look at your protein as well. That would be, I'd say, to look at nitric oxide boosting plants and vegetables, but also look at ways of increasing your protein, whether it means that you have good quality meats and fish, or whether you supplement with whey protein or vegan proteins. I actually prefer, even though I do eat meat and I do use a little bit of whey protein, I actually prefer vegan and plant-based protein powders.
Yeah, we certainly do that. Chris, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you ever so much. I'm excited because it's lunchtime now after this recording. I'm excited to go home and put a big salad together.
Excellent.
Can you tell us, please, where our audience can find out more about you, so they can get some more information and potentially seek your service?
Yep, rather confusingly, my clinic is Body in Balance, but I have not updated the website URL yet. So you can still just pop in the Pain Relief Centres, spelt the English way, the Pain Relief Centres, plural, even though there's only one of them now, so .co.uk. So the Pain Relief Centres. The other thing you can actually do is just go to YouTube and just Google Chris Pickard and then put in things like Detox or nitric oxide, and you'll find some videos by me.
And I would really encourage you to go to the YouTube and watch those videos, because that's where I've certainly learned a lot already before this show. Chris, thank you ever so much for joining us on the Dr. Tom Show. Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Tom.
Excellent. Let me just stop.